Greetings, and thank you for joining us for the fifth episode of DC Animation with Spenser and Friends. This is an LMG Podcast Production. Today, I am joined by a dear friend. I will let him introduce himself.
Hello, I am Dallas. If y'all have been listening for a while, I'm the Gears of War friend, the Gears buddy.
Yes, Dallas is a dear friend, and thank you for being a listener, Dallas, to the podcast. So, quick question for you: tell me about your DC consumption as far as comic books, shows, movies, video games, etc. What DC things do you consume?
I never got into the comic books. Most of my knowledge comes from movies, video games, stuff I read online. But I wouldn't say I know a lot about the DC universe, but I think I know more than like the average Joe. So,
okay, because the video games will give you a different perspective and level of knowledge, I think, than just movies and TV shows will. When you say video games, are you talking Arkham series?
Yeah, a lot of the Arkham series. In fact, I think I've played all of them except for the Gotham Knights that just came out. I haven't played that one yet, but I played through all the Batman Arkham games. I even 100%ed the first one, so I played a lot of that game.
Oh, completionist. Okay, yeah. All right. I appreciate you for joining us for this journey through DC animation. Today's film is Green Lantern First Flight. This film was released on July 28th, 2009. I'm going to read a synopsis in my own words, and then Dallas and we're just going to talk about it. So, here's my take on the movie. Hal Jordan is doing a flight simulation when suddenly an injured alien crashes his spacecraft in the desert. The injured alien tells the ring he is wearing to find him, quote unquote. The ring brings Hal out to the crash site where the alien explains that the ring has chosen him to be a Green Lantern. Then the alien and his ship explode. Hal returns the simulator, and while he is out flying, he is attacked by other Green Lanterns. Sinestro introduces everyone, and they take Hal to Oa to have a discussion with the Guardians of the Universe. The Guardians make it clear that they don't like humans, but Sinestro offers to take Hal under his wing. Sinestro takes Hal to the power battery, explains how it works, and lets him know that they are going to go after the ones that killed Abin Sur. They go to a club looking for him, and after a very tense interrogation, the dude shows up. Surprised to see Sinestro, he dips out. Sinestro chases him, and he is able to lose him, but he runs into Hal, and those two fight. Hal hits him with a chair and delivers him to Sinestro. Sinestro is furious and expresses his disdain for how the Guardians are running things. Hal then learns about the beginning. The Guardians were at one point the only sentient beings. They harnessed the power of the green element, the only weakness of which is the yellow element, or rather the color yellow. So they hid the yellow element away, but Kanjaro found it. Abin Sur went undercover to find it, but he got made. Sinestro is reprimanded by the Guardians for his aggressive interrogation techniques, and the Lanterns head out to find Kanjaro. Kanjaro and Sinestro have a secret meeting in the spirit realm or something, and Kanjaro's people go invisible to try to escape, but Hal manages to find them, and a fight breaks out. Kanjaro starts to escape, and the Lanterns begin chase. The Lanterns make it to his ship. Hal is knocked unconscious, and Sinestro kills Kanjaro. During the debrief, Sinestro tells the Guardians that Hal was the one who killed Kanjaro in self-defense before being knocked out. Hal swears he didn't do it, but the Guardians fire him because he is, quote-unquote, undisciplined. Sinestro uses his ring to temporarily revive Kanjaro to get information about where the yellow element is. Hal suspects Sinestro is dirty. He, Kilowog, and Boudica find him. Boudica attacks Kilowog and has been working with Sinestro all along. Then there is a skirmish, Boudica dies, and Sinestro goes to find the yellow element. Sinestro is successful and obtains the yellow ring, kills the lanterns that were sent to bring him home, and shows up on Oa with the yellow power battery. The Guardians and the Lanterns fight Sinestro, and he is just beating their ass. The yellow battery destroys the green battery, rendering all of the Green Lanterns powerless. With that being the case, the Guardians yield to Sinestro. Sinestro destroys all of the lantern rings, while Hal manages to absorb the green element into himself and hits him with a final shine. Hal fights Sinestro and the yellow battery and comes out victorious. They recite the Green Lantern oath, and Hal flies off. Credits. Dallas, what'd you think of the movie?
I thought it was pretty good. Pretty good movie. I didn't really know a whole lot about Green Lantern going into this. I mean, I know a little bit. Like, I knew Sinestro wasn't necessarily a good guy going into it. So, yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it, though.
Okay. One thing that I did enjoy about this movie, I have loved Law and Order SVU for many years, and Stabler was the voice of Hal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And then what DC does very well, they do a very good job of like keeping people in rotation and using people that they've used before in many different ways for many different things. And so for anybody who has watched DC Legends of Tomorrow, Martin Stein is the one who plays Sinestro. So again, I love it when DC reuses people that they have used in other things. So of course, he was Martin Stein after this, because I'm pretty sure that show, well, they may have been running at the same time. I honestly don't remember when Legends of Tomorrow came out, but this is not DC live action. This is DC animation. So we're not worried about that. Either way, I thought the movie was pretty okay. I did have some questions and some like, what's the deal there things. I feel like in most situations where I have seen somebody granted a lantern ring, they have to go through training to figure out how it works. They can kind of use it here and there, but like they aren't able to get a lot done. And Hal just kind of was an expert.
Yeah, it does seem like the Green Lantern ring would be more of a more complicated tool as far as like superhero stuff goes to try to get a master of. And he did just kind of get in there and just wreck shop with it.
Yeah, like he just kind of like was fully able to just use it. And I was like, oh okay, that's all right. Nothing was explained to him. He didn't go through any classes, no training, just out there. Okay, that's cool. Maybe that's why they picked him. I don't know. Another thing that I thought was interesting was whenever Hal took his ring off, his suit would go away. But when everyone else took their rings off, they were still in their Green Lantern suits.
Maybe he just didn't have time to get one tailored or something.
I mean, I don't know. But I mean, and that's one of those like small continuity things that like shouldn't bother me. But I just noticed it because, you know, we're talking about people who can conjure literally anything they can think of in the color green. Like, I shouldn't be worried about whether or not their suit comes with the ring, but I am. So I just think it's weird that only Hal like went back into whatever he was wearing before whenever the ring came off. Because even Abin Sur, like the ring came off of him and he was still in his little lantern suit. I mean, literally everyone in the movie, like that was the case. So there's not, I mean, we know that Hal's main villain is Sinestro, but to my knowledge, there's not a specific comic book that this movie references. Because for a lot of these movies, there is a reference or a callback to a comic book, and I'm sure that there is one, but in my comic book knowledge, I didn't know of one that this movie lines up with enough to call something that it followed or was based on.
Yes, I was going to ask if this was like the origin story, if it was close to the origin story of Hal.
As far as I understand, it is. Like this is well, at least how he gets the ring, pretty close to his origin story. Like Abin Sur crash lands on Earth, and Hal is chosen by the ring to be the next Green Lantern. Okay. And then Hal goes to Oa, and the Guardians are like, really, this dude? But also they're like, yeah, this dude. So, and then Hal, ends up being the greatest Green Lantern there ever was, because you know how that goes. So, yeah, there are some rankings that would consider Hal to be the greatest hero, period. And I'm like, oh, so y'all just forgot the parallax thing? But that's fine. We'll talk about that in a much later episode.
Okay.
So, yeah. But anyway, normally with the Green Lanterns, their whole thing is willpower is what powers the ring. Like your own willpower. Like the more willpower you have, the stronger you are with the ring. I don't think they mentioned willpower in this movie. They mentioned like in immense focus, but I don't think they discussed willpower at all.
No, because after watching it, it made it seem like all the power came from the actual lantern or the stone in the lantern. That's where all the power came from. To me, anyway.
Yeah, the green element is just where the power comes from. And so I thought that was weird just because all of the lantern rings are fueled by some kind of emotion. Like the yellow ring is fueled by fear. I don't think that they talk about that. They just talk about the light spectrum and how green's only weakness is yellow, which we'll get into shortly. But red is rage, blue is hope. I think the black is death, white is life. There's a whole spectrum of Green Lantern or of lantern rings or whatever. Like I think orange is greed, but they didn't bring any of that up. And I didn't expect them to bring up the other colors, but I figured they would have brought up willpower and fear, and that being kind of why green has a weakness to yellow, because when you're fearful, your willpower is lower, of course. And so I thought they'd bring that up. It does come up in later movies, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but yeah, it just that was one thing that I think bothered me, was that's the Green Lantern's whole thing is willpower, and that was not even mentioned at all. So that was weird, but yeah, it's fine, I guess, that they just decided, focus is what it is now, or in this movie. And if willpower is not what powers the ring, then okay, my bad for being wrong. But my understanding is that the whole thing about the Green Lantern ring is willpower. So, yeah. Also, if the way that they worded it was that yellow was just immune to green, like green has no effect on the color yellow, is the way they made it sound. So how did Hal win?
That is true. Yeah.
Maybe I heard it wrong, but normally they would say, green has a weakness to yellow. And they did kind of say green has a weakness to yellow because it's the only color on the light spectrum that doesn't get affected by it or whatever. But they made it sound like yellow just has like green has no effect on yellow, and
It, and that it is what it made it seem like, and that's how it was up until Hal became like, I want to say Super Saiyan, but
I mean, pretty much, like, yeah,
yeah,
he essentially it was a Super Saiyan. Yeah, like that's kind of how I gathered it, because he managed to absorb. I like the way I saw it. He absorbed the green element into himself
Mhm.
and became its avatar, or was like just supercharged and powered by it.
Mhm.
And he was able to use that to defeat Sinestro and Sinestro's battery, I guess.
Yeah. So I think I remember a part where he got hit by the yellow lantern, and it like took a piece of the green off of his shoulder or something. I think.
No, that's exactly, yeah, it did happen.
Yeah.
And then he like
Yeah.
kind of just reformed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm confused. But I remember not enjoying this movie super a lot. Like, not that it was necessarily a bad movie, but it is not my favorite. Like, it is probably in the bottom 10, if I had to guess. Just going through the DC animated movies that I remember. I mean, they're all at least okay. Like, this is not a bad movie,
Mhm.
but it is by no means a favorite of mine.
Mhm.
And, that's okay. That's why we're going on this journey. Because honestly, if this is the worst it gets, then we're looking at some pretty quality material,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
And this is not the first time we're going to see Hal, but I believe this is the first time we see Hal in this capacity, because I'm pretty sure that this movie stands alone. I don't think that there is another Green Lantern movie that we will discuss later on. I don't think that that is a sequel to this one. I think that these two movies stand individually.
Mhm.
And so this movie just ended. There's no sequel. It doesn't like continue. It's not a part of any continuity. It's just done. How did you feel about the art style?
I thought it was pretty good. It reminded me of about the only animated stuff I've watched DC wise is the Batman animated series. It
Great show.
reminded me a little of that in the art
Okay.
style anyway.
I think
Um,
that yeah, I think that some of the early stuff kind of followed that.
mhm.
Well, I'm not going to say some of, because honestly, like in these first five, the art style in all of them was different. Um, I think that Superman Doomsday most closely resembles the art style of that time period. And I would say that this one is second, but um, I don't think that Wonder Woman, A New Frontier, and definitely not Batman Gotham Knight followed the art style. Batman Gotham Knight is almost, well, it's not even almost, it is an anime. Um, and you all can go back and listen to that episode after you've watched that movie. But yeah, it's the arts. There are some movies where, since since they utilize a bunch of different art styles through this, it's one of the questions that I ask, because it changes from movie to movie. Because I would say that in these first five movies, we've seen five different art styles, I would argue.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I wanted you to see how you felt about it on its own, and then if you have a favorite, or if you'll compare it to anything. And we can talk about that once you've been further in the journey and you've seen a lot more examples of the art styles that are available and offered.
Okay. Yeah.
Because this is a long journey.
Mhm.
Uh, we have a lot more movies to review. But um, yeah. Anyway, um, did you have any other thoughts or things about this movie? Um, Anything that you wish you would have seen, or anything that you were like, huh, I really like that they did that, or anything at all?
The only thing that's been at the top of my mind since I watched this movie is I don't like a certain group of people in this movie.
Okay.
That would be the Guardians.
Okay, let's talk about it.
That's probably what 50% of my notes is about, is how I despise the Guardians in this movie. Like,
I like it. Yeah. Let's get into it. I don't disagree. They were not great. I will say their disdain for the humans made sense because they've, seen people be terrible. But I think that a staple in DC is the idea, okay, humans are terrible, and then some human or some group of humans prove themselves and be like, and then they're like, oh, humans are actually not that bad. And of course, everything here is written by humans. So of course humans are going to write themselves to be the good guy in the end. But that didn't quite happen in this. Like we see it very clearly happen in some other things, but in this one, I mean, there was a human who definitely saved the day.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, the Guardians never brought that back up. The Guardians were never like, maybe these humans aren't so bad. They were just like, no, read the oath and let's keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. But I thought that was kind of a departure from what we've seen so far. Now, with the Guardians, yeah, they're not great. What else? What do you? Why don't you like them? Let's start there.
Like, I'm not gonna say I agree with Sinestro, but
sounds like
I think the Guardians could have done a better job of handling things. Sinestro just took it to the very extreme of how he handled it.
You mean you don't think that an intergalactic police force is the way to take care of the universe?
I don't know what the answer is, but like the Guardians seem like they thought they knew it all, but then they had a guy right under their nose plotting this whole takeover without them knowing.
Yeah, definitely like a hard coup. And yeah, and I was kind of in the same boat of like, Sinestro's not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not gonna say he's spitting facts right now, but I don't think he's all the way incorrect here.
Mm-hmm.
Do I agree? Like, I found myself doing that. Like, is he right? Now, of course, it's always a situation where even if the villain is, relatable or correct, they always go about the situation in a terrible way, because they always, got to hurt people or whatever. Because whenever he did get the yellow element, then he was like, all right, I'm going to have to just destroy the Green Lanterns. And, I get that, because if he was going to have any enemies, that's who it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I meant to find out what those like ashy aliens that gave him the yellow element, I meant to figure out what they are, because I don't think I know what those were. Like, I'm not familiar with those.
They call them the Makers? No. What do they call them? I don't remember what they call them. I don't think I wrote it down either.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm sure that they've appeared in other things. So I've seen enough, or I know enough about DC to point to, okay, I've seen you in this place before, or something like that. But I'm not familiar with them, and I feel like this is my first time seeing them that I'm aware of.
Yeah. That one did drop that cool quote about when he's explaining what the Yellow Lantern does and stuff, and at the end he's like, "But there's one minor flaw, and that's the user." And
Yes.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, like the flaw of every weapon.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah,
its user. And I was like, oh, that's a sign, Sinestro.
mm-hmm.
You should have paid attention. Now, of course, the Green Lanterns aren't gonna, acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that dude, or I guess they were pretty like hive mind, because a different one was talking to him every sentence, but it was one long monologue. So I guess they all share a brain or something. But yeah. And I also don't know. So like, were they, I guess they were working for Conjaro. And once they were done, they were like, all right, we're done. We're going home now.
That's what it made it seem like. Yeah, as soon as I handed it over to Sinestro, they were just like,
yeah, because I think that because Sinestro or the dude was like, yeah, Conjaro already paid for it, so it's if he's dead, here you go. Like, we don't care. We were hired to do this, and it's done now. So we're gonna wash our hands and go home. And so yeah, I guess I don't know if they. So I guess they're the ones who built the battery that the yellow element was using. And I'm wondering, I don't know why that battery was sentient, or maybe it wasn't sentient. Maybe Sinestro was 100% controlling it, but it felt like the battery kind of had a mind of its own or was taking orders from Sinestro, but Sinestro wasn't actively controlling it.
That's the feeling I got from it, because there was at some points when Hal would escape, it was actually physically looking for him, like with its eye.
Yeah.
But
so I think that I guess their job was to build the battery. And I guess they did a better job of building it than the Guardians did building their battery, because their battery couldn't do that. And also, so I'm guessing that the yellow battery just destroyed the battery, but it didn't destroy the green element.
Yeah, since he was able to get that little sliver of it.
Yeah, and I guess the green element can't be destroyed, but I would think that if anything could destroy it, it would be the yellow element. I don't quite know. Again, this is the first time I've seen a Green Lantern situation where like there's the color and there's like a physical embodiment of that color that is where the power comes from. Because I've always known that, there's a Green Lantern battery, and there are like small portable ones as far as I understand as well. But I didn't think that there was, I guess, a hard energy source that powered everything or that caused everything to have its power. But I'm also not intimately familiar with Green Lantern or a bunch of his stories. I know, some things here and there, but I can't say that I just have a wide range of Hal Jordan things. So, and that may be why I was not able to come up with anything that this movie was based on specifically. I think it probably pulls from multiple stories, but I don't know that it is an adaptation of something specific. So, yeah. I don't know. Did you have anything else on the Guardians?
One of my notes I know I wrote was that they are the worst Blue Man group.
That's funny. Yeah, I can agree with that. And so I guess the Guardians are telepathic and telekinetic. So I remember them like lifting debris.
Yeah, they did that, and then when they did their little vote I think it was to keep Hal as a or to grant how the ring they did it like or telepathically.
Yeah, they had and they called themselves a tribunal. I guess a tribunal is of a higher order because, like, I figured they would be a council, but I guess a tribunal is like the upper echelon of a decision making body. But all right, did you have anything else about the movie?
The other little note I had was, what was the girl?
Boudica.
Boudica. So that same weekend I watched this movie. I watched a movie called The Verdict. It's from 1982. It's about a lawyer, and he's going up against a church about a malpractice suit against some doctors. But anyway, when the lawsuit starts up, he meets a girl in a bar, and they become lovers and stuff like that. And the other lawyers seem to have a leg up on him, like they always know what's going on. And the big twist in that movie is it turns out she's working for the other lawyers, and like my jaw dropped when that happened. And then I was like, I feel so betrayed. And then the same thing happened in this movie.
You know what's funny? In the movie before this, so in episode 4, we talk about Wonder Woman. Okay. And in Wonder Woman, there's a similar betrayal because in the Wonder Woman movie, we have Ares as the villain. And Ares has been imprisoned. And he gets out because he seduces one of the Amazons and she falls in love with him. So she kills the person guarding him and lets him out. And then, they escape, they go do their evil thing. And so, yeah, I'm wondering if this is going to be a theme that we see, because this is the second time in a row that we have seen a situation where we have a woman who is, working both sides, who is pretending to be on the side of good, or who started on the side of good and ended up being persuaded to the side of evil. And I feel like that's a pretty easy twist to throw into things. So it is interesting that you happen to watch a movie that's 40 years old that had the same thing.
Oh yeah.
So that worked out. And so yeah, if you go back and watch Wonder Woman, then you will notice that something similar takes place. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to mention that. So I'm really glad we talked about that. So Dallas, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this movie?
I would say probably about 7. I think it was a decent movie from beginning to end. Kept me engaged. I felt like I learned a little bit about Green Lantern. Like I said, I didn't really know a whole lot going into it, but
and another thing that I forgot to mention. So we have in episode 2, we talk about Justice League: The New Frontier, and in that movie, it centers on Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, and Flash, kind of. Because, most Justice League movies are going to focus on the big 3, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. This movie specifically focuses on another 3, again, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, and Flash. And in that movie, we also see the origin story of Hal Jordan. The main difference is in that movie, he's Green Lantern for like 15 minutes. He is Hal through the majority of the movie. And then he doesn't get the lantern powers really until the end. And then he, is able to use them to be successful. And that was another situation where it's like, oh, you just know how to use this? All right, that's fine. But yeah, that was kind of a brief origin story. And then this movie kind of expands on that. And so that would lead me to believe that that is definitely Hal Jordan's origin story. And I mean, that's always how I've known his origin story to be. Like, Abin Sur gets hurt, shows up, gives him the ring, and then he starts Green Lanterning. But yeah, I forgot to mention that as well. So, you know, another version of Hal's origin story shows up in the Justice League: A New Frontier, which is the second movie in this series. And so whenever you start the entire journey, you may come across that. So anyway, I would say I'd give this movie a 6. I think that as far as DC animated movies, it's definitely on the lower end. As far as just movies in general, it's pretty okay. Like, it's definitely not bad. But I just know that there are some movies that are coming up that are way better. And I remember not caring for this movie a bunch compared to some of the other ones. And I think that still stands because I don't think I liked this movie any more than the first time I saw it. And that has been the case with a couple of these. Like in episode 2 and in episode 3, the first time I saw those movies, I didn't really care for them, but I watched them through this journey that I'm taking, and I like them more now than I did the first time I saw them. But this movie is still in the same place. Not terrible, not the worst movie in this group, just not spectacular. Nothing that I'm probably like, I don't think that I'm going to go out of my way to watch this again. And I'm not trying to discourage anyone from watching it. And hopefully, if you're listening to this episode, you have already seen it. But it just, and if you thought that it was spectacular, if it was one of your favorites, if I'm just off base here, then, you know, let me know. We can definitely talk about it. But for me, you know, not sensational. And Dallas, I think that whenever you take this journey, you're going to quickly realize, oh, some of this shit gets really good. But this one is definitely on the lower end, but still not bad. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. You definitely kept me on track as far as reminding me about things that I planned on talking about and then just forgot. So I definitely appreciate that.
Glad I could assist.
So in the next episode, we will be discussing Batman, Superman, Public Enemies. So until then, salutations.